It clearly proclaims, "Now therefore, O kings, be wise, be instructed, you judges of the earth." Have you ever wondered what God meant when calling the powerful to wisdom, or what the story would be like of someone who heard this call and learned to trade pride for humility before the King of Kings, of Tai? Come with me and dive into this story that may warm your heart and reveal what it means to be instructed by God, even in the most challenging moments. The story of Beatrice. At 49 years old, she sat in the office of her small company, the silence of the night broken only by the ticking of a clock on the wall. The soft glow of a lamp illuminated an open Bible resting on Psalm 2:10. "Now therefore, O kings, be wise, be instructed, you judges of the earth." The words, read on a troubled afternoon, felt like a direct call to her heart. They made her reflect on her life, the triumphs that filled her with pride, the failures that humbled her, and the wisdom that was beginning to bloom. Beatrice grew up in a middle-class family where success was the highest value. Intelligent and determined, she graduated in business administration and by the age of 30, founded a consulting firm. Her leadership skills and quick decision-making took her to the top. Clients sought her out, local newspapers praised her, and Beatrice felt like a queen in her own kingdom. But with success came pride. She believed her talent was enough to overcome any challenge and rarely asked for advice, let alone sought God. "I make my own way," she would say with a confident smile. By the age of 40, Beatrice's kingdom began to shake. A series of cancelled contracts and the pressure from larger competitors pushed her consultancy into crisis. To make matters worse, her daughter Sophia, then 15, began to drift away, resentful of a mother who always put work above family. "You think you can handle everything, Mom," Sophia said during an argument. The words stung Beatrice, but she ignored them, diving even deeper into work to save her business. Yet deep down, loneliness grew. One night, while reviewing spreadsheets, Beatrice felt a tightness in her chest, not from health but from emptiness. She found a Bible that had belonged to her late grandmother, Amelia, a woman of deep faith who always spoke of God with tenderness. Beatrice opened it to Psalm 2:10 and read the call to wisdom. The words confronted her. Was she, with all her pride, like the kings who needed to be taught? Exhausted, she prayed for the first time in years, asking God to guide her. And the call to wisdom. The next morning, Beatrice decided to change. She sought help at the church her grandmother used to attend, where she met Pastor Elias, a 65-year-old man with a calm presence and eyes full of understanding. Over coffee after the service, Beatrice poured out her heart about her crisis and mentioned Psalm 2:10. "Why does God call kings to be wise?" she asked. Elias smiled and replied, "Because even the most powerful need to understand that only God is sovereign. Being wise means recognizing that you don't have all the answers, but He does." Elias's words made Beatrice reflect deeply. She realized that trusting only in herself had made her ignore advice, push people away, and even neglect her faith. Psalm 2:10 was an invitation to humble herself and be instructed by God. Beatrice started attending church regularly, even bringing Sophia, who, although hesitant, agreed to come. She also began reading the Bible, learning what it truly meant to be wise, not just in business but in life. At 45, a new test arrived. A major client, Mr. Almeida, offered a contract that could save her company, but required her to manipulate financial reports. "This is how the game works, Beatrice," he said arrogantly. The offer was tempting. The money would pay off her debts and bring back stability, but Beatrice remembered Psalm 2:10. Being wise meant obeying God, not giving in to pride or greed. She refused, with a firmness that even surprised herself. Almeida scoffed, calling her naive, but Beatrice felt peace. "God instructs me," she thought. Be instructed without the contract, Beatrice had to downsize her company. She sold her luxurious office and began working from home with a smaller team, focusing on clients who valued honesty. It was difficult at first, but she found joy in simpler work. At church, she joined Elias's group, where men and women shared their struggles and grew together. Beatrice also helped organize community events like craft fairs and charity drives. Sophia, seeing the change in her mother, began to open up. One evening, while they cooked dinner together, Sophia said, "You're different now, Mum. You seem lighter." Beatrice smiled with tears in her eyes and opened the Bible to Psalm 2:10. "It's because I'm learning to be wise, my dear. God is teaching me." Slowly, Sophia began to trust her mother again, and the two rebuilt their relationship. At church, Beatrice met Clara, a 55-year-old artisan who had lost her husband and was struggling to support her grandchildren. The two became close friends, and Beatrice helped Clara sell her crafts at the local fair. "You help me believe that God still has plans for me," Clara said one afternoon. Beatrice realized that being instructed by God meant not only changing herself, but also using her life to bless others. A transformed life. At 49, Beatrice now lived with a peace she had never known. Her smaller company was thriving, built on values she would never again compromise. Her home, filled with Sophia's laughter and friends from church, became a refuge of joy. She adopted a cat named Saul, who kept her company during her nightly Bible readings. At church, Beatrice led a women's group, sharing how Psalm 2:10 had taught her to trade pride for God's wisdom. One afternoon, while setting up a community fair, Beatrice received a letter from Sophia, now studying psychology in a nearby city. "Mum, you taught me that being strong means knowing how to listen to God," Sophia wrote. Beatrice placed the letter in her Bible next to Psalm 2:10 with tears of gratitude. She knew that by allowing herself to be instructed, she had found a far greater inheritance than any kingdom, a life filled with purpose, love, and faith. The meaning of Psalm 2:10, Psalm 2-10. "Now therefore, O kings, be wise, be instructed, you judges of the earth," marks a shift in the psalm. It begins with the rebellion of nations against God and His anointed, but now it offers an invitation that the leaders, kings, and judges choose wisdom by acknowledging God's rule. Beyond the historical context, this verse speaks deeply to the human heart, calling all of us to humility and obedience. Be wise. This wisdom is more than caution, it is the recognition of God's sovereignty. For Beatrice, it meant abandoning pride and seeking divine direction, even when the world offered tempting shortcuts. Be instructed. This call is an invitation to humility. Kings and judges, figures of power, are challenged to submit to God. Beatrice learned this as she listened to God's word and the counsel of the faith community, letting Him shape her decisions. A universal call. Though directed at leaders, this verse applies to anyone who carries influence, in the home, at work, or in life. Beatrice discovered that being wise meant leading with love, not control, and letting God be her guide. A reflection for the heart. Dear reader, have you ever felt the pressure of trying to control everything? Maybe you've built kingdoms, careers, families, dreams, with your own hands only to see cracks appear. Psalm 2:10 is a gentle invitation to be wise, to be instructed by God. It calls us to trade pride for humility and control for trust. Beatrice discovered that true wisdom comes from listening to God and living for Him. And you? Is there something in your life that needs divine instruction? What if today you chose to let God teach you how to be wise, how to build a life that stands strong even in the storms? May your journey be guided by the wisdom of the King of Kings, leading you to a life of peace and purpose.